Hey, and welcome to Game Talk episode 31. I'm your host, Ahmed Mian. I'm joined by Tristan
Hello.
and Connor.
Hey guys.
And the first thing I wanted to talk about today is probably the most popular game development studio in the world. Certainly the most lucrative, and that would be Rockstar Games. So, Red Dead Redemption 2 recently came out, and as expected, insane critical and commercial success. I actually saw an article recently saying that it was the highest grossing opening weekend for an entertainment product ever, which is
Yeah,
insane.
raised what was it, 732 million in
over
3
700
days?
million in 3 days. So huge success, and the game's incredible. Based off of my experiences from it. So that, along with the fact that Rockstar's kind of been mired in a little bit of controversy as of late due to news coming out of their insane crunch during Red Dead Redemption 2, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about Rockstar. And maybe we could start off by just talking about the Rockstar games we've played and which ones we like best and that sort of thing.
I've only played Grand Theft Auto 5 and I thought it was okay, but I really just don't get the appeal of Rockstar games. I don't think they're kind of fun, but I don't think they're $732 million in 3 days fun.
So I never really got Grand Theft Auto. I tried to get into 4. I tried to get into 5 multiple times, and I just wasn't interested. But Red Dead Redemption is a different story. I loved the first game, and the second game is quickly shaping up to become one of my favorite games ever. I mean, it's just the level of polish and just the immersiveness that it offers is several orders of magnitude above pretty much any other game I've played. I think it's a real achievement.
That's interesting. Because for me, Rockstar, I started off with Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and I've just been playing pretty much every installment since then. And I played Bully, and I loved that a lot. But when Red Dead Redemption first came out, and then other people in my family were playing it and were like, oh, you got to try this. I sat down and gave it some time, but I never quite got into it.
Yeah.
Which I felt I find weird now because we talk about Rockstar Games as sort of having a similar way of being built, this open world, do anything, sort of commit some crime for Grand Theft Auto, go shoot some people for Red Dead.
Also,
for some reason, it was something about Red Dead. Yeah. But something about Red Dead didn't grab me the same way that Grand Theft Auto 5 had.
Okay, that's really interesting. So we all come from very different perspectives on Rockstar. I guess Tristan, being the fan of GTA, GTA is obviously, it is the most successful video game franchise in history. I mean, Call of Duty, maybe you could argue, makes more money, but
yeah,
in terms of critical and commercial success, especially it seems starting with GTA, well, not starting with, but really kind of cemented with GTA 5 and how they implemented GTA Online. The online component, I mean, GTA 5 by itself is a massive single-player game, but the online component of it is just as huge, if not bigger. There are people who exclusively play GTA Online and nothing else. It's that massive, and it makes them insane amounts of money. So much so that they've changed their business model over the years. Back in the PS2 days, they were releasing games semi-frequently, but now we get one big release every 5 or 6 years, and having GTA Online and now coming soon Red Dead Online will allow them to continue that business model.
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in 2013, and the last time I saw figures of how much that game was making them, it was over $1 billion.
Easily over $1 billion. I mean, it grossed, within its first week, GTA 5 grossed over $1 billion, which is just stupid to think about. I mean, there's a reason GTA 5 is the most successful entertainment product in history, including all movies, TV shows, books, what have you. It's made more money than everything.
Yeah.
And again, like I often feel like I'm missing something, because I've tried really many times to get into GTA 5, and it's well made. Like I can appreciate how well made it is. It just doesn't grab me forever for whatever reason.
I really enjoyed like the bombast of it, like GTA 5. Like I just remembered I also played Max Payne 3, and that's a very linear game that's like super
Yeah,
scripted and
really
everything. And
different.
it almost plays a lot like Uncharted,
Yeah,
I
really kind
guess.
of different from the Rockstar we know today.
Yeah, but that's what I like from them. Like I like the scripted scenes in the Grand Theft Auto 5 storyline and stuff. Like that's what I was really into. Like the bombastic driving sequences and like just crazy stuff you get to do. I didn't really get into like the free play or any of the side missions all that much.
See, Red Dead 2 absolutely has those really intense linear story missions, but that's all, built on top of like an open world, almost Breath of the Wild-esque, like do anything sort of mentality kind of game.
Yeah. I know I spent a lot of time in San Andreas's or GTA San Andreas's free play mode, but back then I had cheats that would allow me to spawn a jet and fly around and do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and the cheats are kind of like a big Rockstar staple too. Like every one of their big games has like a cheat mode where you can do crazy stuff, and that's a huge appeal for those games too. I know Red Dead 2 has like a hidden cheat menu that you can access.
It's kind of retro of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not ready to forgive them for the crunch, I'll be honest. Like even if they release Red Dead 2 on PC, there's zero chance of me buying it as of right now.
Okay, so let's talk about the crunch a little bit. So for those that are unfamiliar, some news stories broke that some Rockstar employees revealed that some of them were working over 100-hour weeks in the weeks leading up to the release of Red Dead Redemption 2, which is just absolutely not okay in any circumstance. And reading more into it, some games journalists like dug into this and got some anonymous interviews, and it seems like there's a real like kind of toxic culture at Rockstar. Like it's very prideful, but like if you're not part of that pride, like if you aren't willing to work massive overtime, other people there will disrespect you and look down on you. And if you leave the company during the production of the game for whatever reason, regardless of how major your contribution was, your name will not be in the credits of the game.
Yeah, and that's just absurd. I won't abide by that. Like a company that's going to behave like that doesn't deserve my money.
Yeah, I agree with that's just an absurd policy. I remember that policy being brought up the last time Rockstar was in trouble with the controversy surrounding LA Noire, where just massive amounts of people's names were left out of the credits of that game.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It just from an outsider's perspective, it seems very like almost like military. Like you're either part of the team or we're gonna cast you out and you're nothing. Basically, something like that.
And I just like 100 hours a week is just an absurd amount of time.
Yeah, that's what is that? Work. Like that's over like 16 hours like, a day. Well, I mean, if you include
weekends,
your
life at that point,
it might be less than 16 hours a day, but still, like it's too much. Like you hear all of these stories from people like really into the games industry that say that like it's not worth it. Like people have had their personal lives destroyed and like all sorts of, their lives have essentially broken down because game developers demand too much of them, and the compensation I feel is almost never enough for how much they demand of you in games.
No.
As soon as like stories were breaking around the whole 100-hour week, I started looking into like some of the things that were being said, and I think part of this is the corporate culture of Rockstar, what you were mentioning before about like people shaming one another maybe for not being as invested. I think there were a lot of people that, especially maybe team leaders or people who had had a significant hand in the upfront idea of this, that were really, really into what they were doing, and they just didn't want to let go or slow down maybe a little. And then other people were feeling the effects of that. Thankfully, after all of this, they have revised the policy, but I don't necessarily see the culture of Rockstar, what may have been a huge issue that we haven't really heard too much about, I don't know if that's going to change necessarily after all of this.
Yeah, and I don't imagine it will, because why would it? Like, look at how much money they make. You know, that's the most important thing to them, and their games are successful on a level that almost no other video game franchise is. So I don't think they'll have any onus to change unless they start seeing that in their finances.
Yeah, unless their turnover rate is just goes crazy at lower level, or at the levels where we might be expecting not significant turnover. You wouldn't expect like a lot of senior level people that are really into this suddenly just leaving the job. But if you see like a bunch of like lower level programmers and asset designers, if you see a bunch of those people leaving, that costs a lot to a company. They're going to have to reconsider it.
But here's the problem with that. I mean, maybe for some other company that could in theory work, but this is Rockstar we're talking about. If one junior developer leaves, there'll be 100 more like ravenous to take their place, just because of the pedigree associated with Rockstar. I mean, like, I would be willing to bet, even under these horrible conditions, like a huge chunk of game developers working at other studios would kill to work at Rockstar.
Yeah.
And that kind of perpetuates the toxicity.
Yeah, and it's not just Rockstar games.
It's not. It's like, most big studios at this point, I would say.
See, I don't even know if that's fair, because, like, I don't know. There are a lot of... I've read about EA not being horrible about crunch before. Like, different studios within EA. It's really a per studio basis. It's just...
I know Ubisoft doesn't really do crunch.
Yeah, Ubisoft doesn't do crunch. A lot of indie studios are just as bad as AAA, though. But it's more like it's not so much like, we'll fire you if you don't crunch. It's more framed as a, like, our company is going to go under if we don't do this.
But what I don't understand, that kind of leads to a pretty good point. I don't understand why Rockstar, of all people, has to crunch. Like, they can release their game whenever they want and make over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yet why?
Nobody would have been mad if Rockstar was like, all right. I mean, they would have been upset, but, you know,
they could have delayed Red Dead
Redemption
Redemption 2 to
6 months.
Fall 2019, and it would have sold just as well. Like, easily. Like, there's no doubt in my mind.
And they can't be hurting for money, because Grand Theft Auto Online is still making boatloads.
I mean, they're absolutely rich. And that leads to another point. I was reading some interviews with some of these employees that were crunching for Red Dead. And the interviewer brought up the point of, like, boycotting to kind of go against the notion of crunch. And they said that they appreciate the sentiment, but in the end, that would just mean less sales for them, which would in turn mean less of a bonus for the employees who worked on the game. So it's a very tricky area of, like, what would be best.
See, I don't think it's as tricky as you're making it sound, because, like, yeah, it sucks that me boycotting this game would hurt those individual employees that have already been hurt. But I'm not worried about any individuals. Like, I'm boycotting it as a statement to the entire industry.
I see. Okay.
So I you know, at some point, like, they should have stood up for themselves at some point as well. And I kind of feel that I'm not in the wrong to hurt their bonus.
Yeah, and just incidentally, their bonus, like, for a major release like Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption, is somewhere within, like, the mid 5-figure range. I just thought that was an interesting statistic.
That doesn't seem significant for the kind of money that...
So, like, at first I was like, that's a pretty big bonus. But then I considered, okay, let's see. Red Dead will make $1 billion in, like, 2 weeks. Okay? So assuming that, like, I think you could easily cut each employee a 6-figure bonus and not hurt at all. But what do I know? I'm not...
Yeah. No, for sure.
Depending on how many employees are partaking in this bonus, and then whatever overhead costs they still have to pay off from the development of this whole thing, I don't know what the budget was for.
It was probably astronomical.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real, like hundreds of millions of dollars. It's honestly, if the financials ever get released, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that this was the most expensive game ever made.
Yeah.
But that being said, the return they're getting will almost certainly pay for it and lots more. Like, especially with Red Dead Online coming out, with the microtransactions it'll make them like billions of dollars for years to come. Same as GTA Online. So
yeah,
I gotta wonder if Red Dead Online is going to cannibalize GTA Online any.
I think it will a little bit, but I don't know. Like, GTA Online almost has its own community at this point, like similar to like the people who play, Destiny or World of Warcraft or something. Like the diehards who only play that game will stick with GTA Online, and I think a similar community will form with Red Dead. Obviously, at first, Red Dead will have way more people playing because everyone's just going to be trying it out. But
yeah, and I think there's something that's to be said about the GTA Online community. There's the creator that's available, the being able to do all the different sorts of. There's the motorcycle clubs, there's the CEO businesses, all that other stuff that you can keep bringing your group together to do this stuff with. And I'm wondering what they're going to do with Red Dead Online.
Yeah, because like they can't just release a bunch of new cars or something
horses
in Red Dead Online. Like, yeah, but like you can do that like once or twice.
There's a pretty big rumor, I think, that there's going to be a battle royale mode in Red Dead Online, which would be fun.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising at all.
Yeah, I'm surprised GTA never got one.
Yeah, well, they did, didn't they? GTA Online had a game mode where everybody's like everybody like spawns like really high in the sky and then parachutes into a circle and then pick up guns and kill each other. So they did have a battle royale mode, player. But it wasn't like well known about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't 100 player. It was like a few small teams of like 2 or 3 people.
The 100 player mark isn't nearly as important to battle royales as like people make it out to be.
Yeah, but since when's the last time you've seen a battle royale with under like 90 people? I'm just saying it's like a staple.
Rec Room. It has 16 players.
Yeah, but Rec Room's a VR game, like
it's just a small.
It's not being played by too many people.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is for a battle royale to go big, like, obviously not on a level of Fortnite because nothing will ever touch that, but something like Call of Duty level, it'll probably be that massive. So you brought up Bully, right, Tristan? So I kind of wanted to also touch on Rockstar's like smaller titles, like the non-GTA and non-Red Deads. I really enjoyed LA Noire when it came out. It was a pretty unique game for its time, and it used pretty, at the time at least, the facial technology was pretty cutting edge.
Yeah, when it first came out, I was really into it. Like if it was the scripted stuff of GTA, but brought into like a 1960s detective, sort of like a pulp noir, style detective story, and I was really into it. My problem was later on, the more I kept playing, was how ridiculous trying to call people out on their lies. The interrogation,
the mechanic for like lie and doubt and whatever was good on paper, but it didn't really work in the game as intended, I think.
Yeah, I definitely spent a lot of time in LA Noire just doing the other stuff other than interrogations. Like, I loved investigating. It wasn't the best put together investigation mini game I've ever seen, but it was interesting enough, and it worked well with everything else they had going on around it. Yeah. I would like to see another LA Noire style game out of Rockstar. I just don't know if we're going to see it anymore now that GTA Online has proved what they can do with just throwing people into an online setting and saying, hey.
Financially, just talking strictly financially, I don't think it'll ever happen. I think it's just going to be, the next game they make will be GTA 6 with GTA Online 2 or whatever they're going to call it.
or whatever.
You mentioned Bully. I've never played Bully, but I've heard it's a very unique, like really well-made game. And I heard that there's some rumors going around that there's actually a Bully 2 in the works.
Yeah, there's been rumors about a Bully 2 for years. I think close to a decade at this point. We've been people that have played Bully have been talking about the possibility of a Bully 2. Because Bully was just such a weird game in a way that, like, you show up at a school and you become the largest, meanest kid in it, and then you're running around doing, the same sort of stuff you do in any other Rockstar game, but centered around this, like, high school. It's very unique, and I love it a lot. And every time there's a new rumor about it, I'm like, ooh, maybe this time. But unless it's adapted to be more like a GTA or a Red Dead Redemption and have some online component, again, I don't think any new rumor is going to hold any water. And I'm sad because I love Bully and I would love another one, but it just doesn't play like GTA or Red Dead or even LA Noire.
Well, the thing with Rockstar is, I mean, I think over 3,000 people worked on Red Dead 2, which is just insane.
Yeah.
I'm sure that some of them, like maybe even 200 or 300, could split off and make a competent sequel to Bully or a competent sequel to LA Noire or something like that.
Yeah. So I'm looking at Rockstar's Wikipedia page because I wanted to see like what series they've worked on and sort of like what the most recent releases for those were. Grand Theft Auto, the last one came out in 2013, but they've been doing online stuff for years.
They probably have a dedicated team for online that probably was just doing that and not working on Red Dead.
The last Max Payne game came out in 2012. LA Noire, they just ported it to the Switch, I believe, a little bit ago.
Yeah, and they made like a VR LA Noire thing. I don't know if that was Rockstar. Maybe someone else did it, but there's like an LA Noire case files, I think it was called.
Yeah. And then let's see here. The only other game like is then Red Dead is the most recent thing they've come out with. As far as games I know people enjoy or have like talked about in the past is that we haven't seen a new Midnight Club in a while, and we haven't seen a new Bully or any sign that they're going to do anything other than LA Noire ports for a while.
Yeah, that was a kind of a weird port. Like when it was announced that it was coming to Switch, I was just like, that's weird.
It also like didn't fit on the cartridge at all.
Really?
Yeah, like there was like a humongous download you had to do in addition to the cartridge.
I mean, I think it's great that the Switch is getting support from people that don't traditionally support the Switch, but at the same time, like, who's going to be playing LA Noire on their Switch?
Who's going to be playing LA Noire in 2018? I don't know.
On 2018 on their Switch. Yeah, it's just a weird decision to me.
Like, LA Noire aged very quickly compared to other games.
I couldn't go back and play it right now.
GTA 4, Bully, those hold up. I watched my roommate freshman year of college, and he was playing LA Noire, and I thought it looked ancient. Like, just that, like, the fact that I was supposed to be able to discern anything from these faces was just ridiculous to me.
Like, at the time, the facial technology was so, like, cutting edge, but we've come so far since then. Like, you look at games like Uncharted 4, it looks like Nathan Drake is, like, literally just sitting right in front of you. It's impressive to see how far we've come.
Yeah, I mean, even more recent Rockstar games, like, it just, LA Noire and Bully, as far as I'm concerned, could have come out the same year. Like, looking at them, they just aged so weird.
Yeah. And it might be that art style that just it doesn't work past when it came out, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to have a game like that where you have to discern facial expressions to understand where to go in the game and have it not look great years down the line.
Right.
Because it just makes that aspect of the gameplay so much harder when you have no idea what you're supposed to be looking at.
And just bringing back the idea of, like, Rockstar games aging. And tying it back into Red Dead 2, I feel like Red Dead 2 is going to age pretty well, just because of well, neither of you two have played it, but the world is so dynamic and reactive to what you do and what it does to itself, in that I really think that like no two players will have the same experience playing it. So I mean, yes, the overall story will be the same, but just like how the random encounters affect your story and shape events that happen, like it's similar to The Witcher 3 in that like it'll have a lot of replay value just to see how things will shake out if you do things slightly differently.
I also feel like Red Dead 1 aged really well.
I think it did. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that they, especially on Xbox, they brought it back via back compat and gave it 4K support. So
yeah, and like that's all it would take, like a bump in resolution. I feel like that game would look great.
And yeah, I was watching actually a Red Dead 1 recap just to get ready for Red Dead 2 because it's been so many years. I don't really remember too much. And I was surprised at how good it looked. Like, it still looks good. Whether the gameplay holds up is another thing, but
I wanted to ask you, since you have been playing it, have you tried the mode that I've been hearing about, the no mini map, or getting the NPCs to tell you where to go?
I've heard
it's not really feasible to have the map off at all times, just because when you're riding through the world, like an event will like trigger somewhere around you, and unless you have your map up, like, yeah, you can hear an NPC like calling out to you or whatever, but it'll be kind of hard to pinpoint them without the map telling you exactly where they are. That being said, a neat way to play the game is to have there's a setting where you can have all the UI turned off, and then you can press a button to basically toggle it for a few seconds, and then it'll go away again. And I was doing that for a while because then like the UI came up when I needed it and then went away pretty quickly. And that was a pretty immersive way to play. But yeah, I think we've talked about Rockstar for quite a while. Does anyone have any closing comments?
Still not going to buy their games
as long as I live,
until I hear good news about their crunch.
I will probably be seeing some of Red Dead Redemption 2. Probably my family will play it. I probably won't get into it unless I have people to play the online with. Just because Red Dead itself doesn't draw me to it, but having people to play with might.
All right, cool. The next thing we wanted to talk about was classic consoles. So classic consoles such as the SNES Classic and the NES Classic, and soon to be the PlayStation Classic. These classic consoles have really kind of taken off in the past couple years, and they've been quite big successes too. I read recently that Nintendo's SNES and NES Classic sales combined total over 10 million consoles sold, which is pretty. I think that's extremely impressive, especially considering what year it is. So I kind of wanted to just bring up the idea of these classic consoles and talk about them with you guys. Do you guys own any of them?
I have the SNES Classic, and I really like it.
I don't have any of the classic consoles that have been released.
Yeah, I don't have any of them either, and I think my whole mentality on it is that I've got a Raspberry Pi, like a $30 Raspberry Pi that has all of these games emulated on it. So, I mean, we can get into the ethics of that some other time, but as far as playing those retro games goes, that satisfies my needs pretty well.
Yeah, I have every intention. Nintendo did not do very much to prevent you from hacking your SNES Classic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not.
And I'm just going to toss more games on it, like when I finish the ones that are on it, like, because there's nothing stopping me. So it was just an easy way for me to get essentially a hacked Raspberry Pi, because that's all I would have used that for.
So I remember when the NES Classic first came out, and even when the SNES Classic came out, like, they were almost impossible to find. Has that been remedied?
Yeah. I don't know. I think so. I see NES and SNES Classics pretty much every time I go to any store.
Back when I think the SNES Classic first came out, I was actually planning on getting one, And then like the day it went live, I checked like an hour after it went live, and everything was sold out everywhere. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I'm not going to."
That was actually why I got one. I was just at Target one day, and I saw two there, and I called my stepbrother who's really into this stuff, and I was like, "Hey, aren't these like crazy rare?" And so I impulse bought both of them and gave him one.
And I know like a bunch of scalpers like on eBay bought like so many units at launch and tried to like upsell them. Well, the joke's kind of on them now that they're plentiful and not selling at a reasonable price.
The joke's really on any poor guy that bought one from a scalper back then.
They're the ultimate loser in this situation.
They're neat though. I mean, it feels like you're playing on the original console to play on them for the most part. I kind of wish they had output other than HDMI. Like, I'd really like for some composite cables so that I could hook it up to an older TV and like not need a filter to get that CRT look.
That would be cool, but I think one of Nintendo's goals, in addition to like satisfying our nostalgia, is to maybe introduce some of these older games to a younger generation. The younger generation is not going to know what to do with composite cables.
Yeah, I agree. And I just wish, like, I don't know, my stepbrother uses an HDMI to composite converter, and that kind of sucks because the game already has like it like puts a UI rectangle around your game, so that it's in 4:3, and so now he has the game squished into 4:3 on a TV that's already 4:3. It just gives you a very small screen to work with.
I wanted to talk about the most recent addition, I guess, to these classic consoles, because I didn't grow up on the NES. I didn't grow up on the SNES or the Sega consoles that they've released or the Atari. But what they are coming out with, the PS1 Classic, is something I definitely grew up on, and I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I think it looks like hot garbage. That game lineup sucks.
So, what's in the game lineup? Okay. I'm not really too sure.
So they announced when they were first doing this 5 games.
Only 5?
The original 5 they announced. There's 20, but they announced 5 first off, which people found weird. The first 5 they announced were Final Fantasy VII, Jumping Flash. Let's see here, where to go? Tekken 3, Wild Arms, and Ridge Racer Type 4.
Okay.
I played a lot of Tekken 3 growing up. I did not play the other 4, so I was like, okay.
I hear Wild Arms is a really good RPG.
Yeah, but so the other 15 were released. So now they've added Battle Arena Toshinden, Cool Borders 2, Destruction Derby, the original Grand Theft Auto, Intelligent Cube, the original Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Revelations Persona, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Siphon Filter, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, and Twisted Metal.
Okay, so about like half of those I think are really good picks.
Yeah, there's certainly some great picks on here, but not what I would have put on a classic PlayStation.
So, just out of curiosity, what would you have added if you could?
I mean, I understand where they couldn't maybe have gotten Crash Bandicoot or Spyro, but those two were huge for that console, and it's a little strange that they're missing. But I can at least understand why it might be harder to get those. I guess licenses.
Activision said no when they asked.
Probably. I don't think we'll ever really know the answer to that one, but mostly because Spyro Remastered is like less than a month out, so. But, so, Spyro and Crash Bandicoot are gone. People are a little confused about Battle Arena Toshinden, because nobody I've talked to...
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, no one I've talked to knows what that game is.
Sounds like a Japanese game?
Probably, but if that's the case, where's just a regular Street Fighter on the console? Or a Virtua Fighter or something? And then... I've never heard of Intelligent Cube or Jumping Flash. And there's also Gran Turismo is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, that's kind of an auto mission for sure.
Where's Tony Hawk in all of this?
And where's Tony Hawk Pro Skater? Like, those Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Spyro 3 were the only games my PlayStation ever saw. Like, and Mega Man Legends.
Yeah.
Like, those are the games that like made up that generation for me.
If they had said the Misadventures of Tronbon will be on this console, I would have bought it no matter what the other 19 games were, because that game by itself is like $200 now, and I would have.
Yeah, so is Mega Man Legends. Like,
so, but it is definitely like a strange lineup, and it's not even just strange that those are the 20 games. It's strange that those are the 20 games this country is getting, not the one Japan is getting.
wait, they're giving us the weird Japanese game, but also giving Japan a different lineup?
Japan has a mostly different lineup. So, let's hear. So, what's different from our list is they have Ark the Lad 1 and 2, Armored Core, Devil Dice.
Oh, they got Armored Core? That's a good game.
G. Darius, Gradius Gaiden, Parasite Eve, and it looks like Saga Frontier is the other one. So, not only did we get a very strange lineup, we didn't even get the same lineup.
That's weird. Yeah. I don't know. Nintendo, the lineup for Nintendo was the same for every region, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what I'm hoping happens with this console is what you guys said about the other two consoles, is that it's super easy to mod and everybody can just throw their old PlayStation games on there. That'd be great.
I wouldn't count on it because, like, historically, ever since the PS1, Sony's been harder to mod than other
plus,
consoles.
PS1 mods are kind of funky too. Or ROMs, sorry. PS1 ROMs. But we'll see. I think I'm more excited for a potential PS2 classic. Like, I hope they nail that, because I actually never owned a PlayStation 1 growing up, but I played a lot on PlayStation 2, and I have a lot of fond memories on that console.
What would be your top 3 picks if they were to announce a PlayStation 2 classic?
Oh, God. Well, they've released this game pretty much on every subsequent PlayStation console, but I have to say Jak and Daxter, just because that's so seminal to me.
Yeah.
Personally. What else? Probably Metal Gear Solid 3. And what do you think? I'm kind of drawing a blank right now.
Yeah, when I think of the 3 games I would want on a PS2 classic, I mostly go for games that I know are hard to get nowadays, mostly because I want people to be exposed to those. But,
okay, I see. Well, when I think of a classic console, I think their intention is to kind of create a best of list for that console. That's kind of where I was going with that, with the games I mentioned. But
if I were to pick at least 2 or 3, I think you'd have Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know how I forgot that.
Probably Persona 3. 3 or 4. I think 4 was on there as well, and it's a toss up in that community of which one you want more. And then probably you mentioned Jak and Daxter, but Ratchet and Clank.
Oh yeah, Ratchet as well. Yeah.
I would want Ratchet and Clank, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the old one.
That would be great.
And Destroy All Humans too.
Star Wars Battlefront 2, like the old one, is so like orders of magnitude more fun than the new Star Wars Battlefront game.
I still play it sometimes. I picked it up on Steam on sale the other day, and it's still fun.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, I don't understand. EA could have literally just made that game, like remade that game with better graphics, and it would have sold so much.
Yeah. Like, just a DICE remake with better graphics and sound.
Getting back to like classic consoles, like with the games we just mentioned, like those were huge for the PS2. There's a number of games on the PS1 list then that are just confusing as to why they're there, because they're not particularly well known. And what I'm thinking is my thought on this is that when Nintendo goes to make the NES Classic or the NES or SNES Classic, is that they already have the rights to all those games, whereas Sony might not have the rights to every game that they would love to put on there, or it made the most money for them on that console.
Yeah, very few of those games we just listed were first party. Like, I think Ratchet and Clank might have been the only one.
Insomnia, or Jak and Daxter was Naughty Dog. And Metal Gear 3 was
Konami.
It was a PS exclusive, but it wasn't a first party game.
Yeah, that's third party. Yeah.
So I think that might be why we're seeing this strange lineup, but also I've talked with some other people about this lineup ever since it was announced a couple days ago, and we're all, throwing around games we want to see, but I haven't heard anybody actually say they want to get this console. I mean, it's at $100 already.
Really?
Wow, that's really steep.
Yeah. But nobody's talking about the price point. Nobody's talking about when it's released. We're all just sort of talking about what we wish had been on the console more than what's going to be on it. And I don't see that as a good sign for the release of this thing.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of hate to say it, but I feel like Sony and Nintendo can get away with a pretty low effort release for these retro consoles just because it probably doesn't cost them very many resources to make. So whatever they do sell, they'll probably make a little bit of money off that and call that a success.
It's absurd for them to charge $100 for that because you could make your own for like
30.
Like just buy a PlayStation TV, the like weird Vita that plugs into a TV instead of having a screen.
Yeah,
those can be had for like $25 to $50, I think, because nobody wanted them. And then just buy the games you wanted and make a better lineup off the PlayStation Store. Like,
yeah.
I still think it'll sell well though, just because of the collection aspect of it and having something that resembles a PS1 in your living room again. It's a powerful.
Well, the PS1's not even an attractive console.
It's not, but nostalgia.
Yeah,
like the SNES and the NES have like this iconic look, but like the PS1's just a weird looking gray box.
I can still play a lot of the games that are on that list or a lot of the games that I remember on that list because I still have the discs, and I can either play it on the PlayStation 3 or I can rip it to my computer and I can play it through the PlayStation emulator that exists. So I like the idea that they were going to make a PlayStation Classic. I don't think the list isn't very well thought out to the point where people would want to buy it, and people still have very good access to these games.
Right. One other thing I wanted to mention while we're talking about retro consoles. Nintendo is probably going to release an N64 Classic like within a year, I would say. And out of all of the retro consoles, I'm probably the most excited for that, considering the potential of the games that could be on that thing. N64 for me was like the most seminal console for me as a child. It was my first console and the one I remember best. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Like it could be tricky getting some of the best games on that thing, considering Rare is no longer fair game for them.
Yeah. I don't see Microsoft getting in the way of...
Yeah, Microsoft's been playing very nice lately, so...
Yeah. They'll probably want to cut, but I don't think they'll veto it by any means.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of rumors about an N64 Classic, but that would be the first classic console I can think of where I go, yes, I want that, because I didn't have an N64 growing up, but I know the lineup that would exist on a console for that would be just amazing games anyway.
Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, Super Smash Bros., Mario Kart, Banjo-Kazooie potentially.
Conker's Bad Fur Day.
GoldenEye.
Perfect Dark.
Yeah. I mean, like half of those were Rare games. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. But that is, like, if Nintendo's classic consoles so far have been really the best handle out of the whole classic console wave that we've seen, just in terms of like, okay, maybe they could have done better on actually supplying them early on, but I think they've learned from that, and certainly the games lineups that they had on both of the ones they've released so far haven't been bad. People have liked those a lot, and then have found, oh, well, there's a game I remember, I can put it on here anyway, if you want to go that far.
Yeah, I think Nintendo's been doing a really good job so far. The thing I think I would like to see most is a Game Boy Classic. I would kill for one of those. I think that would be great. But I don't think we've seen any kind of rumor or sign that they're working on retro handhelds.
No.
But
yeah, I mean,
the potential's there.
I made a Game Boy Advance Classic for myself here recently. I hacked my PlayStation Vita to be able to play GBA games.
Yeah.
And I'm having a blast with that. Like, that library is just massive.
Yeah, a GBA, a well done GBA classic would be the most hype thing for me personally, I think.
It would probably sell incredibly well with the added addition of, being able to take it with you and not have to sit down in your living room to play it. Just break out your Game Boy Advance Classic.
Nintendo comes out, we have a console for that. It's called the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, we have the Switch. Why would you want another console?
All right. Do you guys have any final thoughts on classic consoles?
I want to see a better lineup from future ones, but PS1 just sort of, their classic isn't doing it for me.
Connor?
I don't know. I don't think I'll ever buy another classic system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally in the camp where I have literally any classic game that Nintendo or Sony could offer on my Raspberry Pi. Granted, like maybe sometimes the frame rate stutters for N64 games or whatever, but I don't know. I don't really have much incentive to get one of these at this point.
I'd buy a GameCube Classic, but that's like super far away, I imagine.
Yeah. Once we start getting into the things that can't really be easily emulated, I'll be more interested. But yeah, I think we should round off by talking about games we played or recommend. I can go first. No secret, I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I had high hopes for this game, and it completely smashed all of my expectations for it. Like I said, the most impressive thing to me about this game is that it joins a very small echelon of games that I think are pushing game design forward, like in unique, specifically open world game design forward, in pretty innovative ways. Similar to Breath of the Wild, how when that came out, there was nothing really like it in terms of like open world mechanics. Red Dead does the same thing, only differently in its own way. The world just feels so alive, I think is the best way to put it. Even the most minor of NPCs will remember things you say and do around them and reference them later to either you or other NPCs, and that can cause things in the game to happen. It's just a level of reactivity to what you do on the world that I have not yet seen in a video game, to the point where it's almost like it's surreal at times, because you feel like anything you do, no matter how minor, has a consequence. Another big thing about this game to me is the absurd attention to detail. It definitely feels like this game was made by people who have or who are obsessive compulsive about everything they do. Whether it be like the dialogue that exists in the game, there's over like 300,000, I think, lines of dialogue. Most of it, like I would say 99% of people will never even hear, because it's strictly contextual, and like every single situation would have like unique dialogue. Dialogue never repeats. Animations never repeat. Like for instance, I rode into town the other day and watched like a theater play. It had 3 acts. Each act like was a different form of entertainment. Like one was a concert, one was like a dance thing, and no repeated animations for that. So like something so minor, something that most people will not even see, was fully acted, fully choreographed, and it's just that kind of attention to detail, which I think puts it above games like it in my mind. Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it, completely immersed in it. When I'm away from it, I just want to play it more. So really sucked into it, really enjoying it. And the story's great too. Characters are wonderful. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Tristan?
Yeah. Well, I'll look forward to someone else playing that. I'm sure I'll watch them. I've been playing a lot of PlayStation 1 games recently. So I was playing the Misadventures of Tronbon, because I played it a lot as a kid. Didn't understand it very well. Now that I'm playing it as an adult, man, I was bad at that game.
So what is it? I've never heard of it before.
So it's set in the Mega Man Legends world that they created when they did Mega Man Legends for the PS1. Essentially, you play as a sky pirate called the Bon family. your older brother and your other brother. I'm trying to remember the Bond family exactly. They both get kidnapped, and you find out as the sister that the older brother owed $1 million worth of debt to another criminal. So as Tron Bond, you take control of a ship called the Gesellschaft, and you work with
names.
These little dudes and like these little robots with like blue overalls and giant yellow heads called
the little Lego man looking guys.
Yeah, the surf bots. Oh my god, they're the best. You work with all 40 of them to try and raise $1 million to save your older brother. So you go on bank heists. The first one went really weirdly. I'll talk about that in a second. But what I love about that game is that you get to learn all 40 different surf bots. Like, they're all uniquely personalized. They have different stats they can get up to. But their personalities are just so much fun to interact with. Like, there's one that every time you try to talk to him, he just starts throwing paper airplanes around the room. They start crying at, like, the slightest insult to their intelligence. But it's a game filled with personality. The first mission I went on is you go to rob a bank, and so you are dropped off in this town, and you send the surf bots into the building, and then a bunch of dogs and animals run out because they screwed up. The surf bots screwed up and dropped you in front of an animal hospital. But it's sort of like, it's a lighthearted sort of crime that you're committing. You're sort of like, you're running around in this giant robot suit, shooting little missiles, directing the most incompetent robot aides you have to go steal stuff. But most of the time they walk out of buildings with plates of curry or chicken or apples. And so there's just so much going on in sort of like, I want to build the serve bots to be more capable, but I also can develop my robot to shoot missiles and Gatling guns.
So I'm envisioning like a top-down shooter. Is that what this is?
So it's like a third-person action game.
Okay.
Does it play like Mega Man Legends?
I believe yes. That is brought up when you're selecting the controls. Is like, if you played Mega Man Legends, this is the control scheme you want to go with.
I loved that game.
It's so yeah. If you get a chance, I know it's really hard to come across and like play it, but I'd super recommend giving some time to the Misadventures of Tron Bond. So,
Nice.
Connor, what have you been up to?
I want to preface mine. I'm going to talk about Toby Fox's follow-up to Undertale. So, if, like, he's doing a weird kind of release with that, so I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. So you guys, anybody into that might want to stop listening here if you haven't played it yet. Also, do you guys care about spoilers for that?
Nah.
Okay.
You can go. You can go ahead. It's fine.
Well, I'll try to be light with it, but basically, Toby Fox yesterday tweeted, "Come back in 24 hours. I have some questions for you," or something like that. And then he just posts 24 hours later. He posts 3 times Deltarune.com, Deltarune.com, Deltarune.com. Deltarune is an anagram of Undertale, and it's also something mentioned in the first game. So you fire it up, and it's a download. You have to download it, and it starts asking you questions. But like pretty quickly, like it goes into a character creator, and like you're like, whoa, this is a video game, not like a survey. And you start playing it, and you actually get into the game, and you see like tutorials there, like some other Undertale characters that you recognize are there, but they're not like doing what they did in Undertale at all. And it's just an interesting story. Like, you play through it, and like that part ends kind of towards the beginning, and it's all new stuff. But it's like Undertale again. Like, lightning strikes twice. Like, it's insanely polished compared to the first game. Like, everything looks way better. The world seems bigger, kinda, and like.
So is it a sequel to Undertale?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say what it is. Like, it's definitely a spiritual successor at the very least. But like,
and I just read that is it like setting up like a full game?
It
later
is chapter
down?
1. Yes.
Okay.
When you end, it
Ooh.
says to be continued in chapter 2 when you finish this one.
Interesting.
And it was free. It's totally free to download, which is weird. Like, I just don't know where Toby Fox is going, but I can tell you this. I would pay literally any amount of money to get more of this. I loved Undertale, and I love this. And this is like I just don't know where he's going with it yet.
He's definitely a revolutionary game maker. There's no one quite like him.
Because like all of Undertale is talking about like how much your choices matter, but then this game, the whole time you're being told that your choices don't matter, and as far as I can tell, they don't. Like you have the same like you don't have to kill anyone, and I did a pacifist playthrough of this, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't make a difference. Like because it's really easy to do a pacifist playthrough. It just didn't come up that it was at any point difficult.
Was the gameplay the same as Undertale?
It's very similar. You have a party now. It's not just one player or one person. And so you control all of your party's actions, but then after you've selected all their actions, it's the same bullet hell type thing. It just, the UI is way cleaner. There's more characters constantly with you. I kind of
like the janky old school UI.
It's
in the
still
game,
like it still captures that look. It just has a level of polish that the first Undertale didn't. It's hard to explain. Like it's still the same aesthetic, and like it has all these twists and turns throughout and stuff, and it's really heartwarming. And I'm just so excited for more of it to come out.
So has he alluded to the fact that like the chapter 1's free, but is he going to charge
he
for
has
chapter
not.
2?
He's actually said, and I assume that this episode won't be up for a week or two, but Toby Fox has actually asked him to, for no one to talk about the game for 24 hours so that people don't get spoiled.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's like the first thing you see on the website. Don't talk about it for 24 hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's such a good game. And as a result, like I'm dying. I'm like looking for a fix. I'm like online trying to find people talking about it, and nobody really is. There's no news outlets talking about it very much or anything.
That's kind of surprising to me that his wishes were respected like that.
I know. I mean, there is a subreddit
like people
and stuff, but it's really
in the video games, like they talk about stuff like all the time.
Like media outlets aren't talking about anything other than the fact that it exists.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's so good though. Like, oh my gosh. I was such a huge fan of Undertale when it first came out. I never thought like Toby Fox would be able to pull it off again, but he's got me hooked for sure.
That's awesome. All right, well, yeah, I think that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you guys for joining me. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye.